Hey everyone, and welcome to Love Like Crazy podcast. We're your hosts, Jay and Stacey Coleman, and we are so glad that you've joined us. Thank you so much to all of our listeners who have been tuning in, and we just want to give you a shout out and ask you to please, comment, review, like, share, and subscribe. We would love to hear from you. And so today's topic is all about grace, but not just any kind of grace, amazing grace.
Now, speaking of amazing grace, got a quick question for you. Show of hands, how many of you in here have ever wanted to kill your kids before? Raise your hand.
Oh my goodness.
Me and Stacey, Carlos, our producer, he's back here. He's raising both hands. He's raising a young family as well. We've all wanted to kill our kids at times. I don't mean physically kill. I mean, you've had those times where you were frustrated.
Want to pull your hair out.
You want to pull your hair out,
Sure.
And you're just like, I want to kill my kids.
Mm-hmm.
We had something happen recently in the Coleman household, and it was a tragedy. We had a family night. Our oldest son, Tyler, had the grandkids over, and his mama had asked him to bring an exercise ball to her from his house. And it was one of those giant ones you use in exercise class. You can tell by looking at me and Stacey, we work out extensively.
We're buff.
Okay. Anyway, he had this exercise ball. He's bouncing it in the house with his son, Hudson, who is almost 3. And
But the rule is you don't bounce balls in the house.
I hope that's your rule as well. You don't bounce balls. You don't throw balls.
Right.
Okay.
No.
So that night he is bouncing it, and he thought it was funny. He bounces it off Hudson's head. Now, big softball. I mean, absolutely, it was absolutely hilarious. Hudson loved it. He thought it was the greatest thing in the world. But the second time he bounced it off Hudson's head, Tyler missed it, and it hit your favorite lamp in the living room.
And to me, it felt like slow motion.
Now, I don't think anybody realized at this point, but that lamp had such historical value. Apparently, it was crafted by Leonardo da Vinci. It was priceless heirloom that had been passed down generation after generation. It came over on the Mayflower and made its way through American history to where eventually it came to you via your great-great-great-great-grandpa or something. But that lamp, it meant a lot to you because it was your favorite lamp.
Yes, it was my favorite lamp. And I think at that moment, I was just in disbelief. Slow motion, it hit the ground and it shattered. And I didn't know whether I wanted to scream or cry. And
I think everybody else around you felt the same way. Now, as a guy, this was my thought. It's just a lamp, no big deal. We can replace it.
But it was the last one like that.
It was. It had been discontinued. And I kind of actually said something like that, and you gave me the look that every husband gets, and we know that look means shut it, okay?
It means you're in trouble.
You're in trouble, shut it, okay? And so now here's the crazy part. Other men that I've talked to and shared this story, they all had the same thought process. Right. Now, ladies that I've talked to,
all of my friends were just like, I cannot believe
they were like,
that beautiful lamp.
Yeah, just like, what is wrong with you for not feeling the same way as your wife?
Yes.
The point of this story is this, that your kids, no matter if they are 2 years old or 25 years old, there's
sometimes
times
things happen.
Frustrations come up in life. And we experience this with our kids, with our friends, with our family members. And so I know now that the Lord has brought some healing into your heart. You've got a new lamp.
It's taken some time. Yes, I got a new lamp. It doesn't, compare to the beautiful lamp that I had before, but I am loving it.
Okay, so you operated in grace. Are you okay? We're going to be able to move forward?
I am slowly but surely getting past this and showing grace
I'm
towards my son.
Bringing this up. We're not starting
So if he hears this,
you want to continue
I
with
love
this
you
podcast?
and I forgive you.
You want to continue with this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. So the bottom line is this. You operated in grace towards Tyler, and you didn't kill him. Okay,
no.
So as his father's your husband, I want to tell you how much I appreciate that, because I don't really, I would go visit you in prison, but I don't want to do that. Okay.
Thanks.
So the point of all this is grace, amazing grace. And grace is something that is extended to us by God. Now, when it comes to grace, we're pretty great at receiving it.
Oh, we are, but we have a difficult time to give grace to others.
We like getting grace from other people, but when it's time for us to extend grace to other people, a lot of times we struggle.
Yes.
You need to remember something, because when it comes to grace, it's something that God gives us. I want to read this to you. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. Paul writes this and he says, God saved you by his grace.
Mm-hmm.
When you believed, and you can't take credit for this, it is a gift from God. I love that. Paul writes in Romans about the grace of God justifying us and making us new. And the beautiful part about this is can you imagine if our kids frustrate us, if our spouse frustrates us, if our other people around us frustrate us, we've done things before that in that light possibly would frustrate God. And what does he do? He extends grace to us. So if he gives us grace, surely we can extend it to our
other
spouse,
people,
to our kids, to other people.
Yes.
So
definitely.
In that regards, we're going to talk to you a little bit about operating grace with our household. So,
and the first one that we need to talk about is grace with our spouse.
Yeah. And I speak with a lot of experience in this area because
please expound on that.
Don't look at me like that. I'm talking about you've had a lot of grace towards me. Because I know that a lot of people, they look at me and say, Pastor Jay, he's got to be such an amazing spouse to live with, to deal with. He is amazing. But the truth of the matter is, sometimes I can be a
How much
bonehead.
coffee have you had today?
6 cups so far.
6 cups?
Yeah. So
wow.
The bottom line is this. There's a lot of times I've been a bonehead.
Yes.
And you have extended a lot of grace to me before.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that regards, let's talk about having grace with one another.
Okay.
The first thing is this: we got to be very careful what comes out of our mouth towards, the
Right.
people around us, especially our spouse and our kids.
Yeah, because there's power of life and death. There's power in the tongue.
Okay. And so when we say things to people, we have the ability to hurt them or to build them
Mm-hmm.
up. And we've talked in past episodes about making sure that we're ones who are willing to encourage and build each other up, and how important it is for us to be able to build up and encourage our spouse.
And I think a lot of times, married couples, we get into arguments, little fusses, so forth. And sometimes it's not exactly what you say, but it's how you say it. It's your tone of voice.
It's your tone
that can affect
I've heard that
the
before.
relationship.
Because a lot of times you tell me like it's not necessarily what you said, it's how you said it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah. A lot of times we get on autopilot and we think
we don't even realize
our tone of voice out of our mouth.
Yes.
Here's a thought for you. And this is going to translate through all the different things we're going to talk about. But my mama taught me growing up, and your mama probably taught you the same thing. Sure. We call it the golden rule. But a lot of times people don't attribute that where the golden rule comes from. Jesus is actually teaching Sermon on the Mount, and he makes a statement. He says, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. We find that in the book of Matthew. Pivotal point. He's preaching an amazing sermon, and he says this. And a lot of people may not even attribute that to Jesus. We just kind of take it as
right. They don't even realize that it's scripture.
Right. And what that says is this: how do you want other people to talk to you? How do you want other people to treat you?
Yes.
How do you want other people to respond to you? Because that's the way that we should be responding, talking, and treating others around us. And it has to start at home.
Yes. And you have that option whenever you are having a dispute with your spouse to choose your tone, but also to choose to have grace in the situation. Or not.
So what you're saying is it's all about we can actually choose to have grace or choose not to have grace.
Well, and we have the opportunity to choose our response to each other.
I would agree with that, because how many times it's kind of like this: you say, well, I can't control myself in this situation. I can't, the heat of the moment. No. But think about this. You're in the middle of a disagreement. All of a sudden your phone rings and you pick it up. You go from fussing, squabbling.
Oh, hello.
Hello, how are you doing? Oh, it's so good to hear from you.
Yeah.
And in that moment, what happens is you go from being frustrated to being graceful and patient. So you have the opportunity to say, you know what, it's just not worth us fussing about this. I can choose to walk in grace towards you.
Well, you have to think, how would you want to be treated? How would you want to be treated if the tables were turned?
Yeah. I know early on in our marriage, this happened a couple of different times where we were arguing about different things. And it might be a situation where we get into, and we're in the heat of the argument. And in that moment, we realize, what are we arguing about? You remember I asked you that, what are we even arguing about? And you were like,
I don't even know.
Don't know. So it was. I remember making the statement like, "Well, let's just quit.
Yeah.
Let's stop arguing." And we made a conscious decision in that moment.
Like, what are we even fighting for? Just quit.
We're going to stop arguing. And I think that was operating in grace towards one another. So in your marriage, choose to have grace with each other. Choose that the words that are going to come out of your mouth, even in those moments of frustration, that you're going to walk in grace. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you.
Watch your words and watch your tone.
That's good. So let's move from that to this. Grace with your spouse. How about amazing grace towards other people around us?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Because you don't ever know what people are going through. When you run across different people and say you're at the store and someone is, snappy with you or whatever. You just never know. They might be going through a hard time, and you have to have grace and overlook.
Let's say that you are at a restaurant, waitress, waiters taking care of you.
Okay.
They're not taking care of you in the manner that you think that they should take care of you.
Fast enough.
They're not fast enough. Maybe they were a little short in taking or maybe they got your order wrong.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They wrote it down wrong. And are you going to let that frustration come out of you, or are you going to realize maybe they're having a tough day? Maybe they're walking through a difficult time. Maybe they just found out that there's a loved one who's ill. Maybe they just found out their hours are getting cut.
Yes.
Maybe they're trying to make their rent, but they don't have enough, and there's a stress that's on them. You never know what people are going through.
That's true. And also, this is something that I've learned dealing with grief. I teach a grief share class. And one of the things that we've talked about often is, we just have to have grace with ourselves when we're going through a hard time, but we have to have grace with others, because sometimes, people try to help and they think that they're saying the right thing. And sometimes it's not really what we need at that time, but we have to have grace where that's concerned.
Now, one of the things that I've come to understand is this is huge. A lot of times we're good at having grace. We're good at watching our tone when other people are around and watching.
Right.
Okay. In other words, when there's people, there's an audience, there's people who are watching what we're doing. We're pretty good at treating other people right, especially our spouse and our kids. But what about when nobody's looking?
Yeah.
What about whenever it's just us and that person that we're encountering? How are we going to treat them? Because truth be told, a lot of times how you treat people in private, that's your true character.
Absolutely.
That's really what is there. And so I would say this, that in those moments of frustration, remember what God has extended to you, His grace, His love, His forgiveness. And in that moment, you should be able to freely give as well. In other words, push the frustrations to the side.
Yeah.
Choose to operate in grace. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you.
And having grace with others is also serving them, honoring them,
having respect for them,
putting them before yourself.
All right, let's talk about the kids now. You have anything else you want to add in that regard?
That's good.
Okay, that's so good. Grace towards your spouse, grace towards others around you, and then grace towards your kids. Now we're going back to the lamp story.
Oh, that's going to be the example for grace, the lamp story.
Well, and I think that everybody knew that you were aggravated. No, let me back up from that. Everybody knew you were angry.
I think everybody was holding their breath, waiting to see how I was going to respond.
Is Mama Bear going to come out?
Yeah. And I think I did a good job not to start screaming or crying.
Whoa.
Okay. I got really quiet.
You did.
And I think y'all are waiting to see what exactly are you going to do. But I do believe that the tension was in the room, so much so that the grandbabies could feel it.
Grandbabies are looking like, we've never seen this side of Nana.
And so our little oldest granddaughter, Livy, who's 4, she comes up to me and she says, Nana, my daddy has a lamp at our house and I will bring you his lamp. And I was like, she's giving away your furniture, and I had to assure her, it's okay. Nana's going to go shopping and we're going to find a new lamp.
Well, and here's the situation that I appreciate this is that no matter where you are in life, these frustrations have an opportunity to pop up in your life. And we got to be real about this. It's not, we're not going to sit here and paint a pretty picture for you that, that Jay and Stacey are just always on top of our game. We're always, they're perfect people. We're not. We face frustrations just like everybody else. And this is a real opportunity for you to just go off the handle.
I could have.
Everybody knew you were, you were angry. There was tension in the air. But
I was upset.
okay, that's fair to say. No, I would not angry, upset.
I was upset
But
over
you
it.
dialed it down and you had grace towards
Mhm.
him.
Mhm.
And so let's take this into extending grace to our 2-year-old, extending grace to our 16-year-old, because there's different times that we have to have grace with our kids. And I think I would take it in this direction. We have to be careful what comes out of our mouth towards our kids.
Yes. And I think that's because the grandbabies were right there. I think that's why I just exercised as much self-control as I could muster at that particular moment, not to say something that I was going to regret and not to say something in front of them.
So what you're saying is that the grandkids had not been there.
No, I think I would have still exerted self-control, but
it is a fruit of the Spirit. Okay.
It is. It is.
So I'm kind of, approaching this cautiously because this only happened about 2 weeks ago.
It wasn't that long ago.
It's still kind of raw.
I just got the new lamp in the mail.
Okay.
Yes.
and she's processing. In another year, we'll give an update on this story.
Sure.
So, now, with that said, so grace towards your kids, we have to be careful about what comes out of our mouth. And I would say this as well. We need to be careful with our kids, what they see come out of our mouth towards our spouse as well.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to emulate what we do.
That's right.
And so I would say this to you. This is a great opportunity to talk about correcting and disciplining your kids as well. Because when it comes to disciplining our children, we need to make sure that we discipline them fairly. We don't discipline them in anger. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've never, been upset or angry whenever I discipline my kids. I'm a human being just like everybody else, but I never let that anger direct or lead my life.
So we need to correct them in love.
Exactly. Now, a lot of times what that meant was this. If I'm going to discipline them in grace, I had to give myself time to kind of settle down a little bit. Because sometimes they do something, that they go outside and destroy one of my tools, and I need to, it costs me a lot of money. And it has, and I need to replace it, spend money now, or they break something, or they disobey me or you. You get frustrated. So never discipline in anger. You need to give yourself some time to calm down.
Yes.
And
step away from the situation. Give yourself at least a good 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, to calm down. And then discipline them with the right mind, whatever that might look like within your household. For us, we never hesitated to corporal punishment. We did. I know you were as children growing up, but we did that as well. But I always made sure that they understood exactly what they had done wrong.
Yes.
They knew why they were being punished. And then whenever I got through administrating correction, and you did the same thing, we would pull them in our lap and love on them.
Yes.
Because we always wanted them to feel.
And we would pray with them.
We would pray with them. Because we wanted them to feel our love even in that moment of correction.
Yes, absolutely.
So now there were also times where we're talking about grace, but let's bring mercy into it. Because there were times they did something that was very wrong.
Yes.
And I may send them to the room to stew on it. Hey, Dad's going to be in there a little bit to correct you. And that was
torture for them, I'm sure.
Psychological punishment, because they're going in there, they're stewing on this, they're already upset. And then I come in and I would talk to them about what they did wrong, and I would talk to them about grace and mercy.
Yes.
And then I would tell them, this is something that's given to us by God. It was a teaching moment. And then I would tell them, Mom and Dad are going to have grace and mercy on you in this. It doesn't mean that what you did is not, and they would, I'm sorry, Dad. And then we'd pray about it and talk it through. So I think in regards to our kids, we need to make sure that as we're walking through life, they need to see grace in our life. Grace does not mean we are a pushover.
No, it does not.
Grace does not mean we're weak.
No.
It means that we are going to be able to freely give and operate in words, actions, tone towards people around us, our kids, our spouse, exactly like what is freely given to us. Love and forgiveness by God.
And I think too, as parents, we have to have the discernment when dealing with our children. Sometimes there might be another underlying problem to their actions. Maybe they went to school and they had a really bad day. Something may have happened that they haven't quite been able to put into words to tell you about. Maybe they're just hungry. Maybe they're hangry. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they just need a snack.
Well, maybe they had a bad day at school. Maybe they had a bad grade on a test.
Yeah.
Maybe they got bullied.
That's true. That maybe there was some kind of problem that needs to come to the surface so that it can be dealt with.
And you're absolutely right. Maybe they're hangry and they just, they're responding.
I'm saying that more towards the little ones.
I get it. So Do you think whenever that happened with the lamp with Tyler, do you think he was like
I don't think
shouting out like something was
I
going
don't
on
think
in his
he
life?
was hangry at all.
You
I think he was
maybe
shouting.
you think he had a bad day or he was bullied and he was, that was a result of him acting out?
No, I don't think so, but it definitely made for a bad night for me.
Look, I'm being, I'm joking, but seriously, I'm glad you brought that up because we need to be aware as parents, like what our kids are going through. And I would say this, if we are going to walk in the grace that God extends to us to our kiddos, we need to be willing to sit down and say, hey, what's going on? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Like what's happening in your life? We talk about communication with our spouse. We need to talk about communication with our kids.
Absolutely.
Our kids
That's important.
They need to be aware they can always talk to us about anything.
Yeah, you want to be able to develop the relationship to where when there is a problem or they're in trouble, that we are the first ones that they run to.
Yeah.
Well, us and the Lord.
Well, and it feels good for us to be able to have somebody to talk to and to share what we're walking through. We find that in our marriage, but there might be other friends that you have, that you can share something with. If you're listening to this podcast and you're a single parent, you don't have a spouse that you can share. So you need to have a good friend that you can sit and talk with. And your kiddos need to know that it's safe to be able to go talk to you as a parent, that they can share anything with you that they're walking through.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you are, because of your response, the way that you've acted towards them, because of the grace of God at work in you, that you are safe to sit and talk with. So I think that this is, man, what a great topic this is that we're going through to talk about grace at work in us and grace at work through us.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's learn from this. Let's go back and kind of recap everything. We love receiving grace. We sometimes don't do so good at giving it. So if you will keep in your mind what Jesus taught whenever he said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That means in your words, your actions, your tone.
Treat them like you would want to be treated.
Treat them like you want to be treated. And keep that in regards towards your spouse. Keep that in regards to other people around you, that waitress at the Waffle House, or that person that you encounter at the grocery store who frustrates you.
Or that person that's grieving.
Or that person that is grieving. That's another episode. We're going to do another episode down the road on grieving specifically.
Yes.
And then lastly, grace towards your kids. Make sure that when it comes to your kids, you do have to discipline, you do have to correct, but make sure they see grace at work in you and through you. So you got anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to add?
I think that's great information to take to heart, and we're giving them a lot to work on.
Amazing grace. It's extended to us by God. Let's step out and extend amazing grace to others all around us. Hey, listen, thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast today. It's been a lot of fun. Had a great time sharing with you about amazing grace. And if you are enjoying this, please do us a favor. Tell everybody you know to tune in, because we want to be able to be a blessing to them, to help them build their marriage and their family in a strong and healthy way through the power of God at work within their life. And so like this podcast, share this podcast, subscribe. If you have any, if you want to review, let us know what you think. And also if you have in the comments, you can actually let us know about things you would like for us to talk about, different topics that you would like for us to broach. So thank you so much for tuning in today. This has been a lot of fun. I'm Jay.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is Love Like Crazy.